ganglia, and there's paravertebral. Paravertebral are also known as sympathetic chain ganglia.
All right. Oh, wait.
So
this right here.
you got to know what they are and what you're looking at.
What is a ganglia in
This
general?
is,
To start with that. So.
Okay, all right, going back. Remember how I was saying the nervous system is just gray matter, white matter, relay center, and pathway.
That's
all it is. Gray matter is a relay center.
So ganglia is gray matter?
Yes. So gray matter is a relay center. White matter is a pathway. So when you separate them out into the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system, a gray matter area in the central nervous system is going to be called a nucleus. But in the peripheral nervous system, a gray matter area is going to be called a ganglia.
Huh.
So what's the difference between the corpora quadrigemini and a ganglia? Nothing. They're the same thing, but one is in the CNS and one's in the PNS.
Is that like when we were talking about nerves versus tracts?
Right. Gray matter, this is where you're going to find your neuron bodies. This is where all of your data processing is. This is where your synapses are, big star-shaped bodies of the neurons, the somas. That's going to be here in the gray matter. Where your neurons are talking to each other and transferring a signal, that's gray matter.
Why couldn't they just call it a nucleus and keep things...
So you know what area
change
it's in?
names.
Maybe? So that you know what area it's in, just part of the name?
Maybe.
I don't see that that's all that important.
Yeah.
What's the difference between calling your corpora quadrigemini a ganglia? What difference does it make? I don't really see one. They
Make
just
it
like
harder
changing
for
names.
us.
So now we get to white matter. White matter is white matter. It's the same from one to another. It's a myelated pathway that goes from one gray area to another, or from a gray area to a receptor. Not a receptor, an effector organ. Or from a receptor to a gray area. All it is a pathway, that's it. In the central nervous system,
So
we
that's
call it a tract. This includes your optic tract, your corpus callosum, your arbor vitae, your intermediary mass, your fornix. All of these are tracts.
got it.
Your medulla oblongata is pretty much a giant tract.
0.112.
Your PNS, we call it a nerve.
Divide by 1,000, so yeah.
So you might have a question. What's the difference between the optic nerve
If you divide this
and
by
the
10,
optic tract?
that's
Well, the optic
about
nerve
60.
goes from the eye to the optic chiasm because that's PNS. And the optic tract goes from the optic chiasm to the occipital
It does
lobe.
have one out. It's at the hypoactive.
And because
Got
that's CNS.
Okay.
So white matter, gray matter, functionally, what is the difference between a tract and a nerve?
Nothing.
Nothing. They serve the same function, they're organized the same way, they look the same. There are slight differences in the neuroglia that compose of them. That may be one of the few reasons that they've chosen to rename them. Because it's in the PNS, your ganglia are going to have satellite cells and Schwann cells. Well, no Schwann cells, they won't be myelinated, but you'll have satellite cells floating around your neurons. Whereas in CNS, you're going to have your microglia. You'll have oligodendrocytes on your tracts in the CNS, but you'll have Schwann cells on your nerves in the PNS.
So it's a structural, not a functional.
Exactly. The functional is the same. And the gross anatomy, when you look at a ganglia, it looks the same. The only difference is the cells that are in it are slightly different because you have your CNS neuroglia and you have your PNS neuroglia. That's really the only difference. Alright, so when we're looking at the PNS and we're looking at the right reflex arc, everything's going to be in terms of nerves and ganglia. Really, that's the exact same thing in the CNS. It's a nucleus and a tract. Your cortexes are nuclei. Your corpus callosum is a tract. Your cerebral peduncle is a tract. So it's really the same thing. We're just using different words because we're somewhere else.
If you
Got all that?
sure you have other questions?
I have 5.